When Banksy joins us.
Hello everyone. We are fresh off of an enraging Mormon apologetics video, so this is
A much needed break.
yes. Oh, our microphone's all over here.
I'm starving and so razzled by people who have...
Do you want a protein bar?
Oh, sure.
The kindness.
See, all this is what true friendship is all about. Dark chocolate almond. Nuko. Isn't it about time?
Okay, so we had the very disappointing party chapter last week, or the other week.
Oh yeah, the non-party chapter.
The non-party chapter.
Give me something juicy, Jack.
Also, apparently crank is meth, is what Sydney says.
Okay. I forgot about the context. Where did Craig come in? I remember it being a joke, but...
She was on crank?
She was on Craig.
I think, yeah. No, it was like she went back in and like snorted another line of crank or something.
Okay, sure. What is she, middle school, high school, barely beginning of high school?
She's a senior, I think.
She's a senior.
Or is she a junior? No, I think she's a junior.
How many juniors do you know are like doing meth and coke and Quaaludes and... There's gotta be some out there, but...
Jane said, I'm just sitting here rolling my eyes about a high school rager in somebody's house that takes place between noon and 4 p.m. on a weekday, and the party is meticulously cleaning up before Mum gets home. Jack, tell me you're Mormon without telling me you're Mormon. Ren says, please read more so I don't have to. Oh, we will. We will never stop. And it's time for chapter 5. Woohoo! On Thursday morning, when Stephanie reported for work in the school office, she was met by the secretary. You can't work here anymore. What are you talking about? Teachers are sending in referrals about you, but they're not making it to Mr. Simmons. Yesterday we found out you've been pulling them out. We found some in the waste basket yesterday after you left. Not only for you, but for all your friends too. Busted. I don't know what you're talking about. Hell yeah, double down. Never admit. Never surrender.
Stop attacking me with your questions and facts.
This entire week...
Literal abuse.
This entire week you've been skipping school after you leave here, haven't you? I've had the flu. Don't give me that. I want a reasonable explanation of what's been going on. I don't have a reasonable explanation. Mr. Simmons wants to talk to your mother. My parents are out of town. I'm serious. I don't believe anything you say anymore. The secretary phoned Stephanie's grandmother. Our vice principal, Mr. Simmons, would like to talk to Stephanie's parents when they come home. When will that be? I see. Will you give them the message when they get in tonight? Perhaps they could come in tomorrow morning? Thank you. Goodbye. She hung up. You'd better go now. I'm so disappointed in you for betraying the trust we had in you. Get out of here before I get really mad.
Jesus. Christ.
Stephanie didn't skip school that day. Instead, she went to each class and stayed after to talk to her teachers. Are we having a comeback in chapter 5?
I would not put it past Jack for... God.
And then it's just about her and Craig's relationship, and it's just the addiction is just skipped over forevermore.
But he becomes a Mormon so quick, no questions asked.
She told them she'd been sick and that she really wanted to make up the work she'd missed. Because of her past history of being a good student, most of them believed her. At noon, she and Jessica went over to Jessica's house. They smoked some pot and had a couple of beers and talked about what was going to happen. If things get too bad, Jessica said, you can always come and stay here. That'd be so great to get away from my family. The only thing I'd miss is the bank card. If you need money, you can always become a dealer. Oh, God. She's entering her dealer era. They make good money. And another thing, I hear they get free samples too.
Oh.
Sounds good. Does sound nice.
It's not like a corporate gig where you're like, and as a perk, you get to have free samples.
Free crank. All week, she had been driving her mother's car because it was new and because there was nobody around to tell her not to. On the way home, she stopped at a convenience store for some mouthwash. When she took off again, she wasn't paying attention and ran into a parked car, putting a big dent on the right side of her mother's car. Oof. I don't know why you would want to borrow your mother's new car if you have a shitty one, because for this exact reason. Like, I would just always assume I might get in a crash.
That's why I still drive a shitty car.
You really do.
The other day, I was like backing out and kind of scraped the side, and I was like, that's why I got this car.
My car's officially paid off now, so I'm like...
Oh, nice. Oh, yeah.
If I get a dent, though, I just truly don't care. I know you're supposed to, and, like, it lowers the value, whatever. I'm just like, as long as it doesn't affect the functioning.
Yeah.
Like, key my car. I don't care. Don't key my car. She drove it home and parked it in the garage. Then she piled up some food storage boxes in front of the dent so it couldn't be seen. That'll do it. Grandma asked her why the school wanted to talk to her parents. I think it's about me joining National Honor Society, Stephanie said. Well, that's nice. Yes, it's quite an honor. At supper, Stephanie said...
As per the name.
But also, I'm like, that's a lie that's going to come back to haunt you in like 6 hours when your parents get home and call the school.
National Honor Society? What the fuck is that even about? I was in that, and it didn't mean anything. What does that mean?
Did you do anything for it?
No.
You just literally were in it? So it's just
in
like
it.
something you can say you're into, like gifted and talented.
I guess. It's like, okay, great. You have anxiety now? Probably.
At supper, Stephanie said, "You stay here, Grandma, and relax. Kim and I will go to the airport to pick up Mum and Dad." When Stephanie and Kim went to the garage, Stephanie had to move some of the boxes so she could back out. "What happened to the car?" Kim asked. "Somebody ran into me." "What are you going to tell Mum and Dad?" "Don't worry about it. Just leave everything to me, okay?" Their parents' plane was on time. After waiting to get their suitcases, they proceeded out to the car. "What's this?" Stephanie's father said, looking at the dent. "Gosh, I don't know." Stephanie was wide-eyed with surprise. "I guess someone must have run into us while we were parked." Her father checked to see if the person who'd hit them had left a note. "Gosh, some people," Stephanie complained. "Why would somebody just hit us and drive away?" "They probably didn't have insurance. It looks to be about $1,000 damage." "That much?" Stephanie said. "Well, this is quite a welcome home, isn't it?" her mother said. "What else has gone wrong?" "Nothing." "Has Craig been around since Grandma caught him in the car with Kim?" "Mother, you make it sound like we were doing something wrong," Kim said. "We were just talking. Why doesn't anyone believe me?" "Because you're like a young, beautiful rose about to blossom," Stephanie teased, trying to sound sincere for her mother's sake, but knowing Kim would understand she was being sarcastic. "Craig hasn't been around," Kim said. "Well, at least that's one thing to be glad of," her mother said. At home, there was so much to catch up on that Grandma forgot to report that Mr. Simmons wanted to talk.
I like how Craig has already been blacklisted by the family.
Yeah. Result that Grandma forgot about phoning Mr. Simmons.
Ooh.
As Stephanie had led her to believe about the National Honor Society.
Dementia working in our favor.
Delish. Stephanie took a long shower so she'd be able to relax and get some sleep. She wondered if Mr. Simmons would forget about talking to her parents. Maybe it would all just go away. At least the marijuana made her think so anyway. Yeah, marijuana usually makes you become less paranoid about stuff like that. The next morning, Stephanie was called out of her second class and asked to report to the office. When she got there, she saw through an open door her mother talking to Mr. Simmons. That 4 p.m. caffeine cut-off has really snuck up on me. Devastating.
I say to hell with it.
I can't. It's like I will not sleep.
You're an early bedder.
Yeah, I know.
Riser.
And even 4 is late. Usually my cutoff is like 3.
I always crave a cup of coffee at 11 p.m.
Decaf can be nice.
I'm gonna get into it.
I have the Highlander Grog decaf.
Oh.
Stephanie sat and tried to think of the possibilities. She knew that if it got too bad, she could always leave home. Jessica would hide her until she could get to California and get a job and be on her own. 10 minutes later, Mr. Simmons asked her in. He was as old and grey as his suit. He had a habit that when he looked at a person, it was through the bottom part of his bifocals so that it appeared he was looking down on everyone. Today he was the voice of gloom. Flunking in history, flunking in algebra, flunking in chemistry, unexcused absences in her class this week. Also, we think she's been using her office duties to excuse her friends and hide the absence forms teachers have sent in about her.
There's probably nothing wrong in her life. She is just a bad person.
She just needs to be shamed and punished and it will all be fine. Her mother was in total shock. What on earth is going on here? Where have you been when you should have been in school? I've just been going to the mall with my friends, that's all. What did you do all this week? Mum, everyone ditches when their parents leave town. Were you with Craig? No. Don't lie to me. I wasn't with Craig, Mum. I just went to the mall with some friends. Why? I like to shop. Stephanie, look at me, Mr. Simmons said.
She has her parents' credit card and she's buying a shit ton of beer with it and they're not even checking the receipts.
Stephanie, look at me, Mr. Simmons said. What are you on? What do you mean?
Crank, Mom. Everyone's on crank when their parents are on vacation.
Don't play dumb with me. You're using something. What is it? Liquor, pot, speed, cocaine? What is it?
As if she knows the difference of any of those.
I know.
I barely do.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm a Mormon. Mormons don't believe in drinking or smoking. Stephanie was aware of the way her mother was staring at her. She knew her face was turning red. She ran her fingers through her hair and then stared at the dead hair that had come out. Oh yeah, her hair's falling out. That's an ongoing storyline. She denied everything. Mr. Simmons suggested that she go home and try to work things out with her parents, and that on Monday she come back serious about school again and prepared to make up the work she'd missed. It's not so bad, she thought, as she walked with her mother to the car. True, her parents would be on her case about schoolwork now, but even so, it could be worse. They got in the car. You're the one who wrecked the car, aren't you? Her mother said. It was a statement, not a question. No, it's like I said, someone ran into us at the airport when we got in to get you. Her mother didn't turn at the road to their home. Oh my God, she's going to rehab. Where are we going? We're going to have a talk.
Whoa! Everyone's just in the car at this point?
I think it's just them.
Okay.
She drove to the parking lot of Dinosaur Park and stopped. What are you on, Stephanie? Nothing. Don't give me that. Mr. Simmons was on the right track, wasn't he? No, why is everyone picking on me all of a sudden? Her mother was losing her patience. Tell me what it is you're doing. Nothing. We're not moving until you tell me the truth, even if we have to stay here all night. Minutes passed by. Mum, this is ridiculous. There's nothing for me to say. Don't lie to me. Why is it you believe Mr. Simmons and not me? Half an hour passed. Finally, Stephanie said,
Half an hour passed? That is a long time, Jack.
She's willing to wait it out. Also, this was before cell phones, so they had a little bit more bandwidth for saying
Half an hour? No.
Finally, Stephanie said, all right, I have tried beer a few times. What else? That's all, I swear. You're lying. 5 minutes later. All right, I tried pot too, but just one time. What else? I might
She's
have tried
like reeking
speed once
of
too.
ganja at this moment.
Is that it? Yes, that's the whole truth. I was kind of worried about telling you, but I'm glad it's out in the open now. Her mother was satisfied. I'm glad you told me. We'll do whatever we need to do to help you. It can't happen again, Stephanie. It just can't. It won't, I promise. They drove home in silence the rest of the way home.
Why? See, this is the thing, is like when your morality is all about these arbitrary can and can't do's because these are the rules and there's no other discussion about it, like kids are so much smarter than adults give them credit for, and that's why so many kids feel so disillusioned by the cardboard world that adults are trying to perpetuate because they can see right through it.
Yes.
Whereas if you were just able to like speak directly to and practically, and you know, I'm not a parent, so I don't want to assume that it's just as easy as just having a conversation, but
Yeah.
nobody in this whole book has been like, hey, talk to me.
Yeah.
Or been like, hey, here's why these habits could be dangerous. Here's what it does to your dopamine. Here's why it could be a problem later in life. Like, it's all just like, you just can't do that because you can't do that because you're a bad person. If you do it, you're bad. It's like, that's not going to help anybody.
I could not agree more wholeheartedly about how so often kids see through like the matrix that parents are trying to sell them. And like it just things don't, like, kids are intuitive, and the amount that I feel like adults will lie to kids because they're like, oh, kids are dumb, and especially the further back you go, people just thought kids were so dumb, but it's like kids are picking up on stuff. I can remember stuff from my own childhood where I was like super aware of something, but adults weren't smart enough to know what my psychological like state was, or like, you know, what my level of understanding was. I think that is a big thing. Like, adults don't learn about early child development before having kids most of the time, so they genuinely don't know what their kids can and cannot and obviously every kid is different within that, so you do have to get to know them.
And haven't properly processed and unpacked their own childhood.
Right. People just bullshit kids too much, and if you just get on their level, it's easier. Yeah, instead of just like driving home the authority dynamic, just get on their level. When they got home, Stephanie went straight to her room and stayed there. At 6 o'clock, she saw her father drive up. She waited. 10 minutes later, he knocked on her door. Come in, she said. He opened the door. I need to talk to you. Okay. He pulled up a chair and sat down next to the bed where she was lying down. He looked visibly shaken. Your mother has just told me some things about you that were very hard for me to believe. First of all, I want you to know that no matter what's happened, we still love you. And we're going to work with you and do whatever it takes to get you off drugs and alcohol. It was just something I tried, Daddy, but now I can see it's no good, so I'm not ever going to use any of it again. I'm glad you feel that way. I'm sorry I caused your mum to worry. The important thing is to get you back on track. I can stop it all today, no problem. And I'll start getting caught up in my classes too. Everything's going to work out okay, you'll see. Good, he sighed. Is it okay if your mother comes in now? Sure. He called Emily. When she came in, he said, Stephanie says she's willing to give it all up. Oh, Stephanie, that's so good. As if, I mean, what else are you going to say? Are you really buying that easily?
I think there's more to come, but
yeah.
As far as previous Jack Whalen books, this actually would have been the legitimate turning point where she's like, You're so right, it is bad.
Yeah. Her father cleared his throat. I'd like to give you a priesthood blessing to help you not use anything from now on. I'd like that, Daddy. She sat in the chair and he placed his hands on her head and gave her a blessing. She had never before heard him so emotional, and it made her cry. Her mother cried too. Afterwards, they both came to her and put their arms around her and told her how much they loved her, and then they left her in her room.
Priesthood blessings are such a weird thing. This is kind of a tangent, but it's like they have like a social utility of bridging connections that might not have, that aren't allowed normally in the culture. So like, you know, mothers are primarily responsible for the nurture of the children, says the Family Proclamation to the world. And as a result, a lot of Mormon dads are, and maybe fathers in general, are a bit distant and kind of view like being close to your kids as like a woman's job. But the priesthood blessing is like the medium through which they're allowed to express their highest love, you know, pretend they're speaking for God and say all the things that they would say if they were God. And it's like, you could just get rid of that whole thing and just learn how to connect heart to heart with your kid.
Yeah, but also some potentially good placebo effects sometimes with health stuff, which, you know.
Little oxytocin from the Body Connect.
Yeah. Half an hour later, Kim came into the room. Mum says to tell you supper is ready. Tell her I'm not hungry. Why is she never hungry, but she's always smoking pot?
Yeah.
Tell her I'm not hungry. They know everything now, don't they? Kim asked. Yes. I knew they'd find out sometime. I didn't tell them anything. I know. Thanks, Kim. I'm glad Kim didn't have to tell her sister, because that would have bummed me out.
Yeah.
It's a tough one, because on the one hand, speed, but then on the other hand, so you like need a confidant, even if you're, do you know?
Yeah. That would, I mean, if this were real and a kid was doing meth, that would be...
Yeah.
But that would be, like, to me, that would just be, like, such a call of, like, oh, I need to connect, like, on a much deeper, more intimate
like I
level
failed
with this person.
to prepare my child. Not that everyone whose kid gets on drugs has failed, but, you know,
I think that is the thing, and this is across the board, I've seen so much in Mormon parenting, and conservative and traditional parenting is like, you have it set up that raising children is the only thing. Like, a woman's job is to get married and have kids and rear them to adulthood. Like, that is what a woman's job is in Mormonism. They're not supposed to go off and get a career. They're not supposed to have creative interests and a social life. It's all about that thing. And so when your kids don't live up to that thing, especially if you've got a patriarchal blessing, there's like, all of your kids are going to be so righteous unless you do something wrong. And then your kid leaves the church and you're like, oh, I'm so bad because I was promised this and it's not working out because I'm so horrible. And rather than like looking into that and seeing how they could repair things with them, they go into this spiral and then they like have to shut off their kid because their kid is reminding them of why they think they're a bad parent.
Yes.
Parents hate thinking that they're bad parents.
I know.
And it doesn't even have to be as dramatic as that.
The number one thing that like keeps them defended from realizing the ways that they're not bad parents.
Yeah, it's like a good parent isn't a parent who never makes mistakes. A good parent is a parent who can acknowledge mistakes.
We're learning a lot about parenting this book.
Yeah, little vicarious parentis. Thank God I got a vasectomy.
Kim left and a few minutes later her mother came in. Even if you're not hungry, can't you just come down and be with us? She nodded. It was very quiet at supper. I got an A in a test today, Kim said. That's very good. You're taking after your sister. It was an awkward moment. In your classes,
But don't do crank, though.
I mean the way Stephanie was before this happened.
The crank.
Stephanie looked at her grandmother. She could tell nobody had told her what was happening. Stephanie was glad about that. Grandma would be leaving in the morning. Kim was the only one who ate very much.
Grandma's from a fucking era where the doctor was prescribing, like, a shot of whiskey for sleep, and...
There was cocaine and Coca-Cola. As soon as she was through, she excused herself and went upstairs. Stephanie got up. I think I'll go to my room now. I've got a lot of studying to catch up on. She paused. I think maybe I'll take a shower first, though. She's going to smoke weed.
Oh, yeah, right in the shower?
You know, maybe she was genuine before when she said she'll quit, but it's like, well...
I don't think she was. I think
6 hours have passed, so...
I think she was taking it the whole time.
Fine, that'll clear your mind. She suppressed a smile. Yes, it always does. She smoked pot in the bathroom before her shower.
Oldest trick in the book.
Stephanie stayed home all day Saturday. In the morning, she sat at the kitchen table and did homework. At noon, she took a shower and got high. In the afternoon... This sounds kind of all right.
Yeah.
Like she got her homework done before she got high.
Great way
She's
to manage.
at home.
Yeah. That's how you work with the dopamine, you know?
In the afternoon, she talked on the phone with Jessica. Jessica was going over to the fraternity house that night and wanted Stephanie to go with her. I can't. Come on, can you sneak out after your parents go to bed? We'll pick you up around midnight. No, I really can't. We'll come by at midnight and wait for you at the corner anyway. Stephanie watched TV with her mother and Kim until 10, and then her parents went to bed. At 11:30, Kim went to bed. At 11:45, Stephanie went up to her room. She sat down in her bed and tried to decide what to do. She wanted to go with Jessica to the fraternity party, but she knew that if her parents caught her out late at night without permission, they'd never let her out of their sight again. I'm getting bored. It didn't make sense to risk everything when she had everything she needed to make her happy right in her own house. She got all the drugs she needs. She doesn't need friends anymore. She kept telling herself she wasn't going, but at 5 minutes to midnight, she stood at the window, her jacket in her hand, waiting for a car to appear on the corner. She waited until 1 o'clock, but no one came. At 1:30, she finally went to bed. Oh, so she didn't party. The next day, she went to church with her parents. After church, she went to her room, and while her mother took a nap, she turned on the shower and smoked some pot. It made the rest of the afternoon bearable. Okay, so it seems like pot is sort of her main one, at least, not the speed or the meth or whatever. So that's good.
Yeah.
I mean, that
Like
feels
maybe, you know,
more
she tried
developmentally
those
appropriate.
things, but...
Yeah, fingers crossed. That night, she talked to Jessica on the phone. Jessica said she was sorry she hadn't come by the night before, but she'd had a chug-a-lug contest with some guy.
Sorry, we just had a little chug-a-lug contest.
And passed out and ended up spending the night sprawled out on a couch in the fraternity house. I'm like, what's that implying? I don't like it. Sprawled out on a couch on the fraternity
That
house.
is not a place you want to be blacked out.
And then we just skip to a new paragraph. I don't know about that. At 9 o'clock Sunday evening, her father knocked on her door. We'd like to have family prayer now. Okay, Daddy. After family prayer, her parents hugged her again, and then her father asked to speak to her. When you go to school tomorrow, there'll be people there who want you to continue to use drugs and alcohol, won't there? Yeah, Daddy, I guess there will be. What will you do if someone offers you something? I'll tell them I've given it up. It might be hard to say that the first couple of times. She shrugged her shoulders. Not really. I want you to tell me whenever it happens. Even if you use again, I want to know. I want us to be close. This is a conflict between good and evil. The best way to frame drug addiction. Anytime you want a priesthood blessing, just let me know. And tomorrow night, I want to know exactly what happened in school. Will you be honest with me?
You know, Dad, if your blessing had that same hit as a,
Yeah, I know.
as a cannabinoid.
Packed a punch, she wouldn't be smoking pot. Sure, Daddy, I will. There's no reason for me to lie now because you know everything. We can beat this thing. If you ask me, it's already beat. It's a good thing we stopped it before it got to be too much of a problem. She's hamming it up so hard. What dad is buying this? What were you saying?
Jack was beating this before everybody else.
I love you, Stephanie. I love you too, Daddy. You're my pride and joy. I won't let you down. You'll see. You'll see.
Damn, Jack Wayland invented the war on drugs.
Yeah.
He is a
And
general
solved
in the
it.
army. Oh, yeah.
That's what people don't know is he actually solved it the same year he created it. So, like...
Oh, yeah. He's the Sherman of fighting crank.
I don't know that reference.
Yeah, more American War reference. The Dwight Eisenhower.
Again. Really not sure.
The Ulysses S. Grant. Of burning down the South of drugs.
Comment below if that joke was funny. I don't know. We will all see you soon for Stephanie Chapter 7.
Love you so much. Thanks for watching.
Love you. Bye.